The rebellion of the Titans was crushed by the gods. Prometheus, a Titan, remained neutral in this rebellion and didn't join in. Nevertheless, he burned with the fire of revenge day by day. He created the first man from clay, mixed with his own tears, pitying the helplessness of the man he created. He stole a spark from Hephaestus' furnace and gave it to the mankind. Enraged by this, Zeus chained him to a mountain where an eagle ate his liver daily, only for it to regenerate every night. This punishment didn't satisfy Zeus. He ordered Hephaestus to create a new human being to further punish humanity. Hephaestus created the first woman. All the gods gave gifts to this woman, naming her Pandora, a combination of the words Pandes meaning all and Doron meaning gift. They sent her to Prometheus' brother Epimetheus for marriage. Despite his brother's warnings, Epimetheus married Pandora. As a wedding gift, Zeus gave Pandora a box, instructing her never to open it. However, Pandora's curiosity got the better of her, and she opened the box, releasing all evils into the world. All evil, according to the myth, originated from a woman. Probably everyone has heard this story. It is very similar to the classic Adam and Eve narrative. In both tales, a divine being reveals an object and instructs not to interact with it. In both, a woman breaks this command, becoming the origin of all evil. If we had been born with the morality of thousands of years ago, this story would seem perfectly acceptable. But from a modern perspective, it is a very sexist story. In this myth, Zeus creates a woman as a trap, and she becomes the culprit for opening the box full of evils he gave her. While many ancient Greeks might have blamed Pandora for spreading evil, it was Zeus who created the first human and gave evil to mankind. Thus, Zeus can be seen as the father of all evil and the enemy of humanity. We can explore the anti-human nature of gods in mythology and why humans worship them. Despite this in another video. In this video, we will focus more on the depiction of women in Greek mythology and society. During the 3rd millennium BC, people in the region appear to have been matriarchal and worship a mother goddess as the primary deity. However, the Hellenes who arrived later were a patriarchal society with a sky god as their primary deity. This new religion and language created a synthesis that led to an unbalanced religion. Over time, the new religion came to dominate the female aspects of the old. Hesiod perpetuates this patriarchy in Theogony. Zeus overpowers the cruel gods of the previous generation and seizes power. The gods and goddesses of the previous generation are depicted as evil, cruel, and savage. The great mother goddess Gaia first tricks and betrays her husband and then betrays Zeus by giving birth to an even bigger monster to avenge her wild monster children. Of course, at the end of war, Zeus completely ends Gaia's region and eliminates her. He also reduces all human women to the existence of Pandora, blaming them as the source of all evil. According to the Hesiod, women are endowed with a nature to the evil. However, their presence or absence creates misery for man. Women are marginalized in Hesiod's works, having no voice and being spoken about only to explain the misery of the male human condition. What was the status of women in ancient Greek society? They lived in a patriarchal society. The primary role of a free Greek woman was to be a housewife, raising children, cleaning, and cooking. The education of girls started at age 7, when the difference between the sexes began to emerge. While boys went out, girls usually stayed at home and received training in various skills and morals. Once married, these skills were put to the test and continued to be developed under the guidance of an older husband and mother-in-law. Hesiod even recommended taking a young wife. Weaving was the only activity in the Greek home that required a very special skill. According to Homer, the skill was both a virtue and duty of all women, from goddesses to slaves. Weaving was thus recognized by Plato as part of a woman's path of knowledge. Taught early on along with other household chores, weaving has been depicted in many artifacts and goddess representation throughout history. Women also participate in certain trades, such as cobbling or goldsmithing. some of whom were freed ex-slaves, continuing crafts they had learned. In terms of religious education, women who wanted to become nuns were trained individually for ceremonies that women could participate in. However, women's sporting activities were rare and often meant the end of a marriage. At the Hera festival in Olympia, girls competed in three age categories. Two of these competitions were localized and took place on a shorter track than the men's races, signifying lesser importance. Singing and dancing to musical accompaniment played an important role in Greek society. Monody was typically performed by men, but choral lyrics were often sung by women. Women's churches organized musical dances on various religious holidays and special festive events, with few expectations. Married women couldn't take part in these choirs, which were usually performed by girls ready for marriage. As expected, literacy among women was lower than that of men, but literacy itself was more a skill of the aristocratic class. Most literacy was among upper-class men and women, who were in the minority. Lower-class people, including women, were often illiterate compared to the upper classes. After the age of 7, boys were sent to school, but girls stayed at home. This disparity is reflected in Socrates' rhetorical questions to Xenophon.
Or if at the end of our life we should wish to appoint a guardian to educate our boys or protect our girls, should we think a loose liver a trustworthy man to choose?
How did some women learn to read and write? Teachers would visit the home of higher class families, while poorer families would go to a common teacher's home. Brothers who attended school often taught their eager to learn sisters. Many women also taught themselves in their free time at home. In contrast, girls in Sparta had a different experience. Spartan women didn't learn weaving, but instead received intense physical training. Spartan girls were trained in running, wrestling, swimming, pancration, javelin throwing, and a type of dance or gymnastics called bibasis. Important in Sparta. They participate in sport activities with the boys and receive intensive musical training. This was unique to Sparta. On religious festivals, they sang songs of their own composition, first ridiculing and embracing their male peers, then praising them to increase chivalry. Of course, before all this training, a woman's primary duty was to be a good wife. In Homer's Odyssey, Penelope is waiting for her husband, and her actions are described as the ideal of a good wife. This has been a significant reference point for a Greek woman. Margaret Atwood critiques this situation in her work, The Penelopiads. We just told from Penelope's perspective. If you're interested, I suggest reading this work after reading the Odyssey, further underscoring the necessity of domesticating wild young girls through marriage and motherhood is the Hippocratic Corpus, a collection of works associated with the teachings of the famous doctor Hippocrates, in a section called Hysteria in Virgins. Hippocrates discusses female diseases, most of which he believes are due to problems of the womb that can be cured by sex and pregnancy. He explains how virgins who don't take a husband at the appropriate time for marriage experience visions and insanity. According to him, without sex, blood collects in the womb and builds up the heart and lungs, resulting in insanity and psychedelic actions such as girls try to choke themselves. The prescribed treatment for this deviant behavior is marriage, because if they become pregnant, they will be cured. You have probably heard the myth of Persephone's abduction at least once before. Today, the myth has been censored and altered from its original form. Let us begin by examining the violence of Persephone. Myth as told from primary textual and visual sources from antiquity. The earliest surviving version of the myth comes from the 7th century BCA Homeric hymn to Demeter. The hymn starts with the innocent Persephone picking flowers while her mother, Demeter, is away. Persephone is lured away from her companions by a beautiful flower, a trap crafted by Zeus. Whereupon Hades leaps out of the ground and kidnaps her. He drags Persephone away. against her will, and on his golden chariot carried her of wailing to the underworld. The hymn then describes how Demeter, panicked, searched for Persephone. When Demeter learns that her daughter has been kidnapped to be the bride of Hades, she flies into a rage and forsakes her duties as a goddess of the harvest. She goes toward the grave, and the hymn explains the foundation of the cult of Demeter at Eleusis. In an attempt to appease Demeter, Zeus sends Hermes down to underworld to convince Hades to return his bride. Hermes finds the Lord inside his house sitting on a bed with his shy wife, very reluctant in her longing for a mother. But when Hermes tells Persephone that she is to return to earth, she rejoices and jumps up quickly in delight. Hades seems to accept the pronouncement at first, but tries to sway Persephone, stating that, as the brother of Zeus, he would be a fitting husband to her. He adds that if she stayed with him, she would be queen of all that lives and moves, and she would have the greatest honors among the immortals. Despite his initial acquiescence, Persephone later states that Hades fed her a pomegranate seed.
But Hades secretly put in my mouth the seed of the pomegranate. Though I was unwilling, he made me eat it by force.
Because she has eaten the food of the underworld, Zeus proclaims that Persephone must stay as Hades' wife for half of the year, causing the winter season before she can return to her mother and the lands above, bringing spring and summer. In the Roman versions of this myth, many elements were preserved, but significant changes were made. In Ovid's Metamorphoses, Hades sees a young girl picking flowers, falls in love at first sight, and kidnaps her. There is no elaborate plan as the original myth. When Persephone's mother complains to the king of the gods, he responds, "This is not an injury, requiring my retribution, but an act of love by a son-in-law who won't shame you." He defends these actions and says that Hades will be a good husband. In this version, Persephone eats the pomegranates willingly, not by force. Upon hearing this, the king of the gods negotiates the order of the seasons. After the decision, Persephone is transformed. Ovid states, "She changed her mind then, and changed her expression to match it, and now her fair face beams as the sun does." This ambiguity created uncertainty for later authors. It became unclear whether Persephone was satisfied with this station or not. For later writers, it suggests that she was in love with her kidnapper. I want to clearly state that while textual and visual sources are vague about that happens to Persephone in the underworld, there is plenty of subtextual evidence indicating to the audience that Hades sexually assaulted the young goddess. While the verse used the Homeric hymn to Demeter, Harpao, to seize or carry off, and Ovid's works, Rapio, to snatch or drag off, are closer in meaning to kidnap than to sexual assault, as we understand it today. These terms imply not only kidnapping, but also marriage by capture. In such an institution, sex without the female captive's consent was expected, as the marriage needed to be consummated through sexual intercourse. Additionally, when Hermes finds Hades inside his house sitting on a bed with his shy wife, very reluctant in her longing for a mother, in the Homeric hymn to Demeter, the text does not specify what Persephone is reluctant to do with Hades, but given the context of the beds, likely representing the marriage beds, the scene takes on a subtle-erotic undertone. It is likely that Hades was attempting to consummate their marriage through sexual intercourse, but Persephone, miserable and homesick, didn't wish to participate. This leads to the metaphor of the pomegranate if one views the pomegranate as representing sexual intercourse. Then it follows that Persephone cannot escape her marriage to Hades once she consumes the seeds, as it was expected in the ancient world that once a man and a woman were bound in marriage, they would remain so unless extenuating circumstances arose. The pomegranate also possesses many symbolically sexual attributes. Its dark red color, and round shape likened to a woman's womb. The fact that it is filled with seeds hints at fertile imagery, as seeds in ancient Greek's sperma was a euphemism for semen. Given this context, the line in which Persephone explains,
But Hades secretly put in my mouth the seed of the pomegranate. Though I was unwilling, he made me eat it by force.
can have no other meaning than sexual assault. As for how the characters are represented, Hades and Persephone fall into fairly sexist gender roles in each of the ancient retellings. Persephone has no agency or control over her own life. She lacks any sense of personality. In fact, at first, she doesn't even pose a name, simply being referred to as Kore, in English, girl. Implied in the representation of Persephone is the belief that the ideal female possesses no sexual drive and is merely an object for the male to pursue and conquer. Hades, conversely, is portrayed as aggressive and manipulative. Through its characterization, male sexuality is defined as predatory and violent. Although Demeter subverts the Greco-Roman understanding of woman by expressing her desires and using her great power to realize them, she is ultimately subdued by Zeus, the embodiment of patriarchy and male power. These characterizations lead to relationship dynamics between man and woman that are inherently unequal. Persephone and Demeter represent two different kinds of woman, one who is passive and submissive, and one who initially appears powerful but is ultimately impotent. Without exception, the male characters always dominate the female characters, whether by virtue of strength or deception. This was often the case with the Greek goddesses. They were usually subdued by some power. While the virginity of many Greek goddesses was emphasized, this was not the case for male gods. Women in many ancient Greek stories are similarly dominated and sexually assaulted. One such story prompted me to make this video. Initially, it sounded like a classic monster tale, but after learning the whole story, I felt only pain and sadness. This is the story of Medusa. In the times when the universe was divided by the gods, there lived a girl named Medusa who was so beautiful that she made everyone jealous and caused all the gods to fall in love with her. Medusa's beauty was unmatched on earth. It is said that all women on earth were jealous of Medusa's beauty. This beautiful Medusa devoted herself to the gods and lived with her two sisters in a temple belonging to Athena, the goddess of intelligence and the favorite daughter of the chief god Zeus. Of the three sisters, the daughters of Porcus and Cato, only Medusa was mortal. When Athena saw this beautiful girl living in her temple, she was impressed by her beauty, but didn't pay much attention to her because she believed herself to be more beautiful and much more intelligent. Athena was with Poseidon, the lord of the seas and the brother of Zeus. The powerful Poseidon was also aware of the beautiful girl living in his wife's temple, but hid his interest in her, fearing he would be despised by the gods for falling in love with a mortal. One day, with the permission of Zeus, Athena learned of Poseidon's interest in Medusa. Poseidon vehemently denied this and swore to Athena that no creature on earth or is in the sky was more beautiful and charming than her. Athena believed Poseidon's words and didn't make a big deal out of it. Even though Poseidon told Athena so, he still couldn't get the beautiful Medusa out of his mind. Poseidon was going mad with passion for Medusa. Finally, the great god of the seas succumbed to his desire and one day raped the beautiful Medusa in Athena's temple. Medusa, the beauty of the world, continued to stay in the temple in ruins. But it didn't take long for Athena to hear about this incident. Athena felt humiliated by Poseidon's act. This feeling first turned into deep jealousy and then into great anger. She became so furious that she decided to punish Medusa in a very painful way, saying to herself,
I will not kill her and her sisters so suddenly. They must suffer great pain first, just like I did.
With this anger, she turned Medusa and her sisters into gorgons. The face of the beautiful Medusa and her sisters were now so ugly that no one could bear to look at them. Each strand of Medusa's beautiful hair, which once turned everyone who saw it mad, turned into a snake. Athena's anger, still not calmed by this, made anyone who looked at Medusa turn to stone. She then banished Medusa to the northernmost part of the world, Hyperborea. Athena wasn't satisfied with this punishment and decided to collaborate with Perseus, the son of Danae, to kill Medusa. Perseus immediately fulfilled his half-sister's request and cut off Medusa's head with his sharp sword. If Perseus had looked into Medusa's eyes instead of killing her, he would have seen only a pair of pain eyes looking back at him.